in focus. Click the links for Odyssey. BG, join the channel, become a valued member, support channel, subscribe, or check out the Gab TV, Telegram, the various other links will take you to many interesting places. So, Bleeding Cool, huh? Bleeding Cool. How does Bleeding Cool make its money? I'm not sure. You can search. You can take a few minutes on their garbage site to see, kind of check where their bias is coming from. So why did Eric July do so well on his crowdfund? What happened? Oh, and if you search Ripaverse and that kind of stuff on DuckDuckGo, the only results you're getting from the media are going to be, I guess you'd loosely call them right of center results or non-SJW results. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of mainstream coverage for what should get coverage, like a comic book that's coming out of a YouTube creator. You would think it would get some more eyeballs. Oddly enough, that's not the case. So what happened? Ripaverse Comics happened. What set the stage? Comicsgate set the stage. It's been a few years in development, started with very humble origins, and Comicsgate made a lot of things possible and brought many different people together. Many of us created channels that started maybe in pop culture or comics and kind of evolved. It might have gone into politics on Odyssey and BitChute and Gab TV. All thanks to one Richard Meyer at Diversity in Comics, who is a great guy, but as crazy as a loon. He's just absolutely nuts. But still, mahalo to him for starting all of this, sincerely. Mainstream comics has become so bad that he decided to make his own, and Jawbreakers and Iron Sights came into being thanks to Mark Wade's machinations. I've got to call into Antarctic Press. Like, can you just not be a pussy for once in your life? You're 50 years old, Mark. Just God, what a soy boy he turned out to be. I saw an interview with him where when all this Wu-Flu stuff was coming, he was talking about how he was scared to leave his house. I thought, dude, you don't have that many years left, man. Live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Anyway, so those comics came into being with $500,000 in sales, which is not bad for a guy who had a smaller YouTube platform. I don't know how many subs his channel had when he launched Jawbreakers. The channel caused so many of us to join in and create our own. It turns out that there's hundreds of people who wanted to start making comics and novels and a bunch of other stuff. EVS, John Malin, Doug TenNapel, Cecil, and a bunch of others have had very successful campaigns. So Eric July already had a pop culture channel and already had a big following, 500,000 followers. So he was in a much better position to sell to a comic audience because he had the comic audience. He talked about comics. He had a susceptible audience, and his audience is sick of SJW comics and of SJWs in general, as many of us, even if you're not into comics so much, it's like Comicsgate is appealing because it's people who are just so sick of SJWs telling you what to think and how to speak and what to believe. Eric also has an audience across many different aisles. He knows comics and enjoys them, but he's also unapologetically an identitarian and doesn't care what some soy boy pussy SJW thinks about it. So there might be a lot of people out there who don't agree with all his takes on pop culture or whatever other takes he has, but they understand the need for a parallel economy which meshes with things like Comicsgate, Gab, and alternative media and the alternative community in general. It's kind of a feeling of we have to stick together and support each other, even if we're not exactly all on the same page, which is why you see a lot of somewhat unusual alliances, because we all know who the enemy is, and that's the SJW who wants to censor us. The mainstream is not for us. It's I guess politics are making strange bedfellows, and with friendships and alliances can crop up. That's a good thing too. The mainstream is not for us. They have made that clear. We need to create a true alternative community. The mainstream is full of brainwashed soy boy pussies waving their, well, first they were waving their BLM flags, then they started waving their Ukraine flags, and now they're on to something else. I forget what they're just that NPC memes of any shiny object, anything MSNBC is telling them to believe in. It's like, oh, okay, we'll wave this next flag. Maybe it's they went from the rainbow flag. Is that in vogue now? Or no, the rainbow flag wasn't rainbowy enough, so they turned it into the trans flag, I think, and they just keep adding symbols to it and believing whatever Pravda CNN is currently pushing. Thankfully, now we have tools available to build an alternative community with, websites and payment processors and that kind of thing. We can change the narrative by creating our own narrative. We don't need a Soros, Rothschild, Schwab, pre-approved party line. Comicsgate started on Indiegogo, then expanded to Kickstarter. But really, those are still gatekeeping platforms acting like choke points. It seems obvious that there is a need to bypass those and create something that doesn't have some blue-haired political commissar, acting as an overseer, some BLT furry otherkin who needs to approve the comic, or is a I don't know, a diversity outreach coordinator or something. It's like, you're just a marketplace. Why don't you just have a marketplace? Like, everyone's welcome to come and sell their product. You don't need to go outreach people, because automatically that means you're reaching out to one community and not to another. It's like, that's not fair. Why wouldn't you just be an open marketplace and let people, if you have a good platform, people will come to it. So Eric July is selling his stuff on his own website, which seems like an obvious thing to do, in retrospect. Even from the beginning, people were talking about that, but it's it takes a little bit of effort to create something new and change something. I kind of wonder why the Comicsgate guys haven't done it already, especially someone like EVS. I kind of would have thought, like a while ago, years ago, would have thought he would have kind of moved into that, because he's got the whole team of people who all he has to do is say, hey, I want someone to build a website, and I'll pay you very well for it, and we'll all start selling over there. And, there is a risk to all that kind of stuff, but it's also the reward of not having a censor. Who, I think Mike Miller's Lone Star comic was censored off one of the platforms, or maybe even both of the platforms, because it had gang members, and the political blue-haired commissars are saying, oh, well, they're marginalized and oppressed, something. It's like, you're just repeating some Saul Alinsky Frankfurt School brainwash propaganda. Do you like, the SJWs even know what they're saying, or are they just the useful idiots? And you see like Soros pulling the strings of these people. Anyway, but that's part of improving the model. It's like, nothing starts off perfect. You're going to have new innovations, and Eric July is, I think, the first guy to come up with something new. It's like, you got to give credit where credit is due. Indiegogo and Kickstarter are great for discovery. That is something they have people who are just going to one site, but they have censorship. So, they go, oh, you're never going to compete with Indiegogo and Kickstarter. Why not? You got to start somewhere. It's like, everyone, you always think like, these are billion-dollar companies. It's like, well, to compete with them in total, well, maybe you will. Maybe that's in the future, or maybe if you never do, it's like, it's just a small Comicsgate associated type of group of people. But if there's loosely hundreds of thousands of people, say 100,000 people who are there, if you have the critical mass necessary to have an audience, and you're growing every year, then yeah, you can compete with them. Is Comicsgate ever going to compete with Marvel and DC? No, probably not, because the kind of the structure, the economic structure, is different than it was, 70 plus years ago, when comics really kind of blew up. But can you create something that is an ongoing business and is very successful? Yeah, absolutely. It's like, can you continue to innovate and create improvements by creating a website? It's like, oh, we can just migrate over there and we don't have censorship. It's like, Eric July seems like the perfect guy for that kind of job. So, you could build a crowdfunding site that was for the alternative community. It can start with comics, but it doesn't have to end there. It can just be an alternative Indiegogo type of thing. A crowdfunding place not for SJWs. That seems like the logical next step. Just be a marketplace. We don't need or want censorship from these cat ladies and soy boys. Hopefully he hits $4 million, so he'll get 10 times what Jawbreakers got, which got $404,000, which kind of shows the growth of the idea and shows you how sick of SJWs people are. And whether or not he's flying the Comicsgate flag or not, I have no idea. But he's in the same audience. And on his website, he's got a picture of, he did an Ethan Van Sciver interview, who's Comicsgate. So he's in the same, he's going to be tarred with the same brush, and the well's going to be, he's swimming in the same poison well with everyone else. So that's kind of good enough. That's why I say, like, if you're in the penumbra of Comicsgate, you might as well just raise the flag, because they're going to call you, oh, you're associated with that hate group. Are you talking about a bunch of 50-year-olds who write comics? Are you calling them, yeah, they're a hate group because they're not on board the Klaus Schwab, I don't know, the WEF, the Bolshevik talking points, because they're not on the Marxist plantation. That group of 40 and 50-year-old guys who are writing comics, they're the hate group. Just because you keep repeating it doesn't make it true. In fact, it makes your side look like a bunch of fucking lunatics. I think people are finally starting to see, listen, we don't have to all agree. We don't all have to be on the same page with everything. But, like, let's figure out some core dogma. We're not into censorship, and we're not into SJWs. Just sell your stuff. If you don't agree with some person's belief, it's like, just leave them alone to sell their thing. It's like, as this famous Cecil, peace be upon him, always says, don't mess with people's money, don't screw with somebody's ability to make a living, which is where Mark Waid upset so many people, because he did that to Richard Meyer 4 or 5 years ago, whenever the hell that thing started. Was he wanted to he messed with somebody's money. It's like, Richard Meyer's a guy who's got a family, he's a veteran of 12 years, just trying to make comics. And Mark Waid, wealthy Santa Monica comic guy, decides he's going to step in between this veteran family man from women all over the world, and say, no, you can't do this. Well, Mark Waid didn't understand that you don't mess with somebody's money. That's a very, very serious transgression. You can read in between the lines there. That, like, people won't forget what Mark Waid did. People won't forget that with no thought, he just decided to, I'll put a call into Antarctic Press, and I'll get between this guy and his ability to make a living. It's like, you might not even have liked Richard Meyer before that, or not had strong feelings, but when you saw that, you're like, oh, fuck this Mark Waid guy. You're going to support Richard Meyer because he has the right enemies. And Eric July has the right enemies too. The things, like, once the SJWs learn that you're not on the plantation, the things like the things they say about you are what, like, the most base people on the right don't even say, because the people on the left, it's like they deep down, they have this hatred. They have this ball of, it's not just racism, it's just a ball of hatred. And it's like, you put holes in a bucket, and you pressurize the bucket with water, and you pressurize, and these different holes are spitting out these streams of water, and it's like one stream. They come out in these different formats, in these different directions, and for them, it's like they'll take any way to get this hatred out, and it comes out in many different forms. And as soon as they learn you're not on the plantation, it's like, you're not a good boy anymore. And, like, you mean the left wing was the racist the whole time? Yeah, but it's more accurate to say they're just miserable people, and racism is just one form that their misery takes. It's just they get their hatred out in one way, and they spew this fucking venom where, like, people on the right, including people on the far right, just say, let's just leave each other alone, or work together when we need to work together. But, like, this kind of insane venom that you see from the left wing, it's like, that's a left wing thing, because they've got this pressure on them, because they can't just be honest and be politically incorrect like we can be. It's like, you're politically incorrect. We know that right from the start. You're going to say offensive things about all these protected classes. Yeah, about every class, every group, all those sacred cows. We're going to slaughter all those cows. And the left wing can't do that. So when they find an outlet for their rage, some Eric July type of character who's making a comic book. He's selling t-shirts, making a comic, over $2 million. Hopefully he gets the $4 million at least. Suddenly he's their enemy. a guy who's, a 40-year-old guy who's writing comics is the enemy. Ethan Van Sciver, Richard Meyer, 50-year-old guys who are writing comics. Oh, it's part of a hate group. Do you hear yourself when you say that? How do adults say that? This is from Holland. Okay, I should have turned off Telegram. Thank God it wasn't a base comment. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode.